Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams offseason so far, as today we got the Buffalo Sabres ahead of us, as this team's offseason, I gotta say, has been very disappointing to say the least. It's been, there's been a lot of good moves that they've done, but the way that they've handled the Jack Eichel situation has me I don't know. I feel like they should be handling that situation a lot better, especially since it's their all-star, like their best player, and they're handling the situation so badly. But before we get into all that, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to slap that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. That'll be very much appreciated, boys. So let's get into today's episode here with the Buffalo Sabres, as we're right off the get-go going to talk about Jack Eichel. He, announced that he had a herniated disc, I think it was, or something like that. He needed to get surgery, and the Buffalo Sabres has declined him of getting surgery. This is a guy that they're openly trying to trade, and they are screwing the booch on his trade value. I honestly think that, with what they're doing here with Eichel and not letting him have his surgery is very dumb. There's a lot of teams that I've heard from rumors that don't want to trade for a guy that might not be healthy going into next season, because of the fact that you're going to have to trade probably a lot of current roster players and a lot of prospects for a player that might not play going into next season. So you're taking a huge risk in that fact, and now we're only a month away and we haven't heard any announcements of Eichel getting to surgery, and we haven't heard any announcements of a trade, and I feel like his trade value is just dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. And this is a player that is an absolute all-star. He is a great two-way guy. His offensive abilities are amazing. This guy could be a #1 superstar forward for any team in the NHL, right? This is a guy that could change franchises, and the Buffalo Sabres are just holding back, not letting him have his surgery, not letting him do anything, and it's making Jack Eichel very pissed off. Now, it's setting a horrible example for the other prospects that are coming up the pipeline. What is Cousins going to think? They still haven't been able to sign Dahlin or Yokoharju, and we're only, a month or two away from hockey starting back up. Like, this offseason, the trades that the Buffalo Sabres have done, the rebuild that they have done, actually hasn't been that bad. The trades that they have traded away with, trading away Sam Reinhart and trade away Ruotsalainen, which I was surprised with what they got, which we'll get into that now, but otherwise, I just think they're really screwing up on the Jack Eichel situation, and they're just not as good as a rebuild as the Arizona Coyotes. Because if it was the Arizona Coyotes with this situation, they probably wouldn't handle it very good either. They didn't handle the Shane Doan. But anyways, the new GM that they have, it seems like, the trades that they were setting off were perfect. That's why I gave Arizona a very high A. And also, just to let you guys know, I did give an A to the Buffalo Sabres offseason last year. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I was clouded over with Taylor Hall joining the Buffalo Sabres last year. But that's definitely not going to happen again this year, as we'll get right into the trades. Now, this is where I really, really liked their offseason, was the trades. I thought what Buffalo did with their trading was perfect. They traded away Ruotsalainen, who has been a bum the past couple seasons. He has not been a very good defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres, and maybe he's able to turn himself around in Philly, but the likeliness of it happening is very, very low. Ruotsalainen has not been a very good defenseman over these past couple years, and they somehow got Robert Hagg, a first-round pick, and a 2023 second-round pick, and that's a pretty good turnaround. And Isaac Rosen, who they drafted with that pick, is looking like a pretty decent prospect as well for the Buffalo Sabres. So honestly, a very good move. And in the next one, they traded away Sam Reinhart for a 2022 conditional first round pick. If this pick is in the top 10, the pick will be exchanged for Florida's 2023 first round pick. And then also Devon Levi, I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name. I don't know why I cannot remember, because I watched this guy during the World Juniors and I was an absolute huge fan of this guy. Now, if you don't know who this guy is, this guy was the goalie for the World Juniors. He came out of absolute nowhere, posting like a .941 save percentage in the CCHL there for the Carleton Place Canadians, which you never usually see players coming out of that league very often. But he just took storm there with the World Juniors, posting a .964 save percentage, a 0.75 goals against average. He was just just an absolute madman for the Team Canada. It was the reason why we made it to that gold medal game. Unfortunately, we lost. But I think for him, this is a guy that can potentially be a future starter or maybe even a backup to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, I think his name is, their future other starter. So, stacking upon the goalie prospects is a good idea. And this was one of the better Florida prospects, so why not? I mean, you could have got a lot more out of Steinbrenner, and I will say that because of the fact that Steinbrenner is a very good player. He posted 40 points in 54 games, 25 goals. He's a guy that could put up a decent amount of points. And is a guy that really was never giving, the correct offense or the correct lines. This team was always just kind of garbage his entire career. So I'm really excited to see how well he'll do there in Florida, and especially the nice contract that he got there too. I thought this was a really good deal for Florida. For Buffalo, it's not a bad deal. You get a pick out of it, and the condition on the pick is kind of a ripoff. What happens if, Florida, which most likely will not be bad, but what happens if they are bad? And that ends up being a top 10 pick in a draft where, the drafts are pretty loaded. I don't like the condition on that trade, especially since Sam Reiner is, an elite level player, and I think he could be a really good goal scorer going forward for the Florida Panthers. I thought you could have got a little bit more out of that deal. But moving on to the next one, the Buffalo Sabres pick up Will Butcher and a 5th-round pick for basically nothing. I thought this deal was a really smart move, too. You pick up a nice defenseman who, 2 years ago played one of his best seasons when he put up 30 points. Even when he played his first year, he was really good. But he's been kind of dwindling down. He hasn't been as good, been given a lot less minutes, a lot less pressure, and he's just kind of been not as good. Now, before we check out Jfresh's analytics, I like to just say go check out his Patreon. The link will be down in the description below. He's an absolute amazing guy. And this is Will Butcher's stats. 32% WAR. It's definitely not the best looking defenseman in the world, right? If you take a look at the 18-19 season, he was great defensively and offensively. Going into the next season, he wasn't too bad offensively, but you can see his offensive game or his defensive game going down and down and down every single year, and especially his offense this year went massively down. And you could say maybe that's the coaching there in New Jersey when Lindy Ruff took over and their offense did go down as a team. And, he still picks up a ton of assists. And this is a guy that, the Buffalo Sabres could use. They just traded away Rasmus Ristolainen, will most likely play behind Rasmus Dahlin if they do sign him. So it's not a bad move. It gives you some more added depth. And it's a young defenseman at 26 years old. And he's only signed for a year contract. So if he ends up not being the guy that you want to keep and you want to play, someone like a Jacob Bryson who played really good for the Buffalo Sabres last year and you want to move him up the lineup, you could certainly do that. But not a bad move. You got him for free, so I can't complain anything about that. Plus, you got a pick. So moving into the 2021 draft, of course, they had the first overall selection, which they ended up selecting Owen Power. Which, there's a lot of big questions with Owen Power. Is he just a big man who might not develop into anything? Which, yes, that could be the case. Owen Power has produced some pretty good stats, but this was a draft that wasn't very highly touted. Put up 16 points in 26 games. He did really good there for the Chicago Steel in the USHL. He did really good in the World Championships apparently too. I didn't watch too much of it, but he was just he continued getting more ice time and more ice time. Now, he is committed to the NCAA program again going into next year, which I thought was a really smart idea by Owen Power. And it's not a diss on the Buffalo Sabres. It's just what is best for your development, and what was best for Owen Power's development was going back to the NCAA and not playing for the Buffalo Sabres this year. They also drafted a ton of Russian prospects, which I actually quite like it. This Prokhor Polpadov, I'm probably saying his name wrong, but this is a really good looking Russian prospect, and most of these Russian prospects are looking really good for the Buffalo Sabres. This guy who put up 52 points in 61 games. Then you got the Alexander kid over here. He also ripped it up in the MHL as well, having 73 points in 61 games, ripped it up in the playoffs. So, they were focusing on a lot of Russian prospects that were just ripping it up in the MHL leagues later on in the draft, which I think it wasn't a bad idea. And a lot of these prospects actually quite look pretty good for the future of the Buffalo Sabres. So I thought their draft was pretty good. The signing wise, they didn't really do a whole lot this free agency. Of course, they're a rebuilding team, so they're not going to add a whole lot. They got a goalie tandem now with Craig Anderson and Aaron Dell to sign them to cheap deals. They also got Jake Kajula. I don't think they got really anybody else. Mark Pysyk they signed. Hina Stroza they signed back to a one-year deal as well. Davidson onto a one-year deal as well. Not too many pivotal guys signed through free agency, and they mostly lost a lot of their big guys like Linus Ullmark and Jake McCabe, who were their two big players. Jake McCabe had an amazing season for the Buffalo Sabres. He'll be heading off to Chicago. There was no way you were going to be able to bring him back in. He didn't really want to stay with the Buffalo Sabres, and that was the same with Linus Ullmark. It sucks to lose a starting goalie like a Linus Ullmark, who, analytically, like we showed in the last video for the Buffalo Sabres, he's been going up every single year and is a player that, could be a very good player for the Boston Bruins, of course. But now the Buffalo Sabres have to deal with Craig Anderson and Aaron Dell going into next year, which I know it wasn't their original plan. They were pushing hard on Linus Ullmark, but now they have a tandem of Anderson and Dell, and you can definitely see that they're definitely tanking for that first overall selection in 2022 for Shane Wright, and also maybe the 2023 draft there for Connor Bedard and Mateo Michkov, which Mateo Michkov has just been looking absolutely deadly. He is already ripping it up in the adult league, and he's only 16 years old, which is just insane. But looking at the depth charts now for the Buffalo Sabres. Oh, also, they did re-sign Don Garotto as well, who was a pretty good coach and kind of made a bounce back after the really, really rough start that they had. Like, what was an 18-game losing streak there with Ralph Krueger. They just did not have a very good year last year, right? And I can't believe I gave this team an A, which blows my mind. But they weren't very good last year. Dan Garano kind of helped them out a little bit, but not very much. But anyways, looking at the depth chart, nothing has really changed. You're going to have Rasmus Asplund jumping in the lineup, who had a pretty good ending to the season. And your depth is but this is definitely not a playoff team. It's definitely not going to be, especially if you don't have Jack Eichel. You're going to be relying a lot on Mittelstadt, who, had a decent year last year, and same with Dylan Cousins. And these are two young guys that really haven't produced a lot in the NHL just yet. So there's a lot of big questions here for the Buffalo Sabres moving forward, I feel. And I'm going to give this team a C. Definitely not an A from what they had last year, but a C. Not like I was almost feeling like I was going to give them an F just because of the entire Jack Eichel situation. But the reason why I gave them a C was because they could have got more out of the Sam Reinhart deal, I felt. Their draft was pretty solid, and they didn't really do anything for their signings. Plus, they lost Jake McCabe and Linus Ullmark. They filled it in with Anderson and Dell, which is definitely not a very good goalie tandem going into next year. I'm giving them a C because they really screwed up on the Jack Eichel situation. I thought they did a hell of a good job getting a nice return on Ruotsalainen, who has just not been that good of a defenseman over the past couple of years. So I'm going to give them a C. I could have given them something higher, but with the way that they're handling Jack Eichel and just about everything else, I think I'm going to definitely give them a C. But they need to get rid of Jack Eichel, and they need to get a decent return back, but from what it looks like right now, I don't think they're going to get a decent return, especially with him being injured and him looking to get a surgery done right now as well. So lots of big questions, but for right now, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Tell me, guys, in the comment section below what you guys thought of the Buffalo Sabres offseason. I didn't think it was that amazing compared to what the Arizona Coyotes did. What the Arizona Coyotes did, they were able to bring in a lot of cap, which the Buffalo Sabres still need to clear. Like, they need to, gain some cap right now because, they only have $28 million. I guess if you had Jack Eichel, because he's on LTIR, you would have about, $18 million. Oh, I guess, no, yeah, that is their projected cap hit. So $28 million, you still need to pick up some players that, hit that cap hit so you could, hit the minimum. So I think for the Buffalo Sabres, I'm going to give them a solid C. What do you guys think in the comment section below? And I'm going to end the video here, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigo.